Welcome to the Chronicle, the official film podcast of the People's Movies. As ever, I'm Paul, and my co-host is Clotilda. How are you, Clotilda?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I am doing great. Thank you very much for joining us. So this is, if I'm rightly, episode 42. And if you love movies, you're in the right place. So, Clotilda, two films we're going to do today. The Last Showgirl and Mikey 17, and both films are now out in the cinema. And the first film for this week of the Chronicle Film Podcast, episode 42, is Mikey 17. So this is Bong Joon-Ho's sci-fi comedy, which is based Edward Ashton's book of the same name. So in this version of Edward Ashton's story, we actually find ourselves about 26 years into the future. I think around about 2053, 2054. However, if you have read the book, the actual book goes into like 100 years into the future. So Robert Pattinson, he plays the titular character, Mikey Barnes, and he's a man who has very little going for him. So we do meet him first on Earth, and we see the planet seems to be in a bit of a bad state. And Mikey, he's in a bit of trouble, and he's with his so-called friend Timo, who's played by Stephen Yeun. People might know him from The Walking Dead. That's probably one and Beef is another show he was in. So they're both of them are running away for like a criminal gang, and we find out they actually owe a lot of money. So one way they figure out how we're going to get away for these guys. So obviously they're high in debt and money. So the pair decide to sign up for a dangerous mission to colonize an ice planet. Am I right, Clotilde? Is it Niflheim? Niflheim?
I believe so.
Yeah. So right away, when we meet them in the recruitment centre, Mikey's so-called friends already deserted him. So he's signed up to become a pilot. So Mikey hasn't got a clue what he's going to do, but he ends up signing up to be an expendable. So if you know what expendable means, you know what type of job Mikey's just signed up for. Obviously, he doesn't have a clue what he's actually signed up for at the beginning, but he starts to understand that when he dies, he's going to be cloned, and that's cloned by using a 3D printer. And in this 3D printer, when he's reprinted, his emotions, his traits, even his memories will all be intact when the new version of Mikey comes out. And the mission actually is going to take him, I think it's about 4.5 years before they even get to the planet. The experiment's already started, so Mikey's starting to already die, and other people are getting intrigued and curious to know, what does it feel like to die? What does it actually feel like? So Mikey gets a bit bored, obviously, people constantly ask him. And it's also, at this stage, early on in the film, we meet the wealthy megalomaniac politician, Kenneth Marshall. Clotilde, I find it really funny because I've got a very good friend who I went to college with many years ago, and he's called Kenneth Marshall, and I know exactly.
That's so funny.
Yeah, he's laughing his head off at it. And
It's quite funny, I have to say.
It is, yeah. And Matt Ruffalo plays Kenneth Marshall, and his wife is it Yeun? I think it's Yeun. It's called, who's played by Toni Collette, and who you can see right away. He's based in. I won't mention his name, but you'll know who I'm talking about. A certain American current president, who's inspired Ruffalo. But if anyone knows the actor over the years, he's publicly criticised and let it known that he's no fan of that certain political leader. And I believe the reverse has been done as well. The colonists. So when we do meet them, the colonists who are on the ship, they're all praising him like a populist leader, and everything he says, the colonists say it like it's covered in gold and it's religious. And he comes out and says there's no sex, but also save calories, and obviously the food supplies, being eating the food that we're giving you. And you see the food, as you agree with me, Clotilda, it's plastic and it's artificial food, and no wonder they look like they're actually losing weight. And we know, obviously, with this, Marshall and his wife won't be following their rules. Typical wealthy, elitist person. And if anyone remembers COVID, there was a lot of politicians were telling us what to do, but they were not doing it as well. So at this stage, this is when Mikey meets Nasha Barrage, who's played by Naomi and Ackie, and she's a formidable, a security officer, police officer on board the ship. I can't remember exactly.
I think she's like a security officer.
Yeah. So Mikey, the two of them just fall in love with each other, and also Nasha has a hate for Marshall as well. And you can clearly see that Patterson and Ackie, They generally feel that they are truly in love. The chemistry is really, really good in this. So at this point, that we're ready from the spaceship to get into the actual island. The planet. Mikey has been shot, eaten, pronged, burned, poisoned, you name it. It's basically happened to him in the name of science. So with Mikey 17, it ticks all the boxes, I think, for a Bong Joon-Ho film. It's the social commentary, the class division, and also the normal person who's just like a cog in the system, but only there for the wealth to serve the wealthy and the elite. And I don't know if you agree with me, but see when they're in the recruitment centre, see at one point the cameras look up and you see the sort of spiral stairwell in case it's coming down into where the recruiters are, Clotilde. I think that reminded me of Fitz Lang's Metropolis, which plays on we're a cog in the system. Don't know if you agree with that, if you remember the bit I'm talking about.
No, for sure. I think there's a lot of like that kind of reflection. It's very Bong Joon-Ho, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. And I even have you seen that sort of Kafkaesque film Anthony Perkins played? I think it was about 1962. It was called The Trial.
I don't think I've seen that.
You see the scene with the office, and it's like symmetrical lines of death.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like that. And it's also the Kafkaesque where we know where they're going there. They don't necessarily make it clear why they're going there, but they know they're going there. And the difference, I've just the last couple of weeks been to the Glasgow Film Festival, and there's a film called Mr. K, which stars Crispin Glover. Anyone that's seen Back to the Future, he plays Marty McFly's dad. That's a Kafkaesque about an aging magician illusionist. The opening reminds me, you ever seen that animation which was set in Edinburgh called The Illusionist? It was a French. The guy did the Belle Devoe, the one with the ladies in the bike. Yeah. Well, the opening scene is you see Crispin Glover and he's doing all the old school trick, and you look into the audience, it's a younger audience, but no one sort of claps or anything. And the thing he goes to this hotel to stay overnight. Coming out of it, he's just staying for the night, and the following day he gets up. There's a lot of weird things happening around it. If you know Kafka, Murakami, even a bit of Terry Gilliam in this, and even a bit of David Lynch, you see this, and he just can't get out of the place. But if you've ever seen a Kafkaesque film, or any of the people I mentioned there's films, they can be a bit crazy, a bit absurd, and they don't really make much sense, but there's an ending meaning to it. But this film, Mr. K, has no meaning to it. It's a wee bit like this, Mikey 17. However, this does make sense. You don't know where it's going, you don't know what's happening, things happen to him, you know. I even also seen in this film a bit of Bong's own film, Snowpiercer. I don't know if you've seen Snowpiercer.
Yes, and I loved it. So yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of references as well.
Yeah, definitely the class division, and then at certain bits, things start to happen. There's a fight starts to break. You can actually even see a bit of a civil war amongst the colonists in this film. Well, let's say, folks, we do apologise if occasionally a little spoiler comes out. Sometimes we don't mean it deliberately. Sometimes there's certain things we've got to say to sort of try and explain the story. So Snowpiercer, I like when Bong Joon-Ho making the film only just under 30 years into the future. I think was a wise move. I think it's all to do with the 3D printers, which, as you know, they're out. You can get them just now, and it's terrifying to know, even nowadays, that someone can go and print a 3D gun, actually fatally wound you, you know. And I think that was one of the. And I think in an interview, I think it may have been the Kermode Mail. It was an interview was done, and he actually said he did that deliberately just to show that type of technology is around, and obviously a lot of the younger audience who are watching this film, when this film when we get to 2053, they will be in their middle ages, and they have grown with the technology. We are doing it just now, but certain ages will it's with time and we'll disappear, but humans will go on and on and on. It's just terrifying to see that how fast technology is actually going, you know. I'm not going to go further on. How much more I like about what I liked about this film or didn't like about this film. Clotilde, do you want to talk about the film, what you thought of the film, if you liked it, if you didn't like it?
Oh, I loved it. I really liked it. I mean, it's very, like you said, it's very Bong Joon-Ho, and I'm such a big fan. of him, so I think it's like not a surprise that I liked
Yeah.
it. I do think if you like sort of like Snowpiercer, Parasite, Okja, or even Pulse, it's very much in
Yes.
like the vein of his films. I think if you like them, you're gonna like this one. Yeah, I was such a big fan. I feel like the more I think about it and the more I like it as well, it's definitely a film that makes me kind of keep going back to it in my head. I think it has so many ideas that like I generally think I should watch it again to explore them as well.
Yeah.
That happens to me a lot with his movies. I found it, I know it's a lot of satire, which I think from some reviews I've read, some people didn't like, but I think it's very well done because it's obviously like a very tragic movie in many ways because it speaks to a lot of our current issues. But I think it's the satire is necessary because it makes you like really sort of like there's a level of this, right? Because this is a fictional story. And so we can enjoy it as a story and for the satire that it gives us and also like in tragic circumstances and not very happy storylines, it does allow the audience, I think, to like laugh about it, even if it's quite sad.
Yeah.
I think if it wasn't like as funny or as much satire, then it would be a really hard. And I also like I mentioned how relevant it is to today. I feel like that's like the biggest strength of Bong Joon-ho's film. I've always found them so they always offer like such an important insight in like our current politics and our current struggles. And I think this film is the same. Like I obviously think it's very relevant to today, but it's not just like commenting on like the American elections or this kind of idea of personality politics, which it does. But I think it's so much more than that. I think the commentary that it offers goes kind of like beyond the maybe specific like historical events that we're living. So much so that I think his films are very relevant even years after they've come out, and I think it's gonna be the case with this one. Like it's about a lot of like big issues that I think are gonna be relevant in a long time, and his commentary is really important to sort of like I don't know, kind of encourage us to like find answers even when it seems like impossible to do it. I've always been fascinated by like the way he combines so many topics like environmentalism and his own ideas about like politics and what he's like as, you know, a leader in the capitalist world who's often a villain. I always find it so fascinating how he can combine all of this in a way that like feels really natural and really organic to the film. But also he's always talking about these topics, right? Like we've seen Snowpiercer and Parasite to a certain extent, although that's less obviously sci-fi. But I think he always does it in a different way. Like it's different enough to be its own film. The commentary he makes is also different enough in this film to sort of justify a new film, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Although he keeps talking about the same topics, and I find it so fascinating how like you can kind of see his own philosophy, if you will, and his own like beliefs, and how perhaps they change from like the past with his very first few films to now. Yeah, I'm just such a big fan. I feel like I knew I was gonna like it, but I was also worried I'd be disappointed. I am such a big fan of Parasite specifically. I think it's like one of the most perfect movies ever made. That it's definitely like a tough act to follow. It's just like very different, naturally. It's not the same, really the same genre. But I think it succeeded for me because I just more than the movie itself, I just keep thinking about like the questions that it raises about like kindness, being kind to others. Like what is a person? In the sense like are we our memories or are we just like bodies and cells? Like every time I think about what I watched, I find like a new kind of topic of conversation. And I think that's incredible. I also want to say Robert Pattinson is absolutely great in this film.
Agreed.
He's playing like obviously he's playing many versions of the character, but specifically this is a bit of a spoiler when we see different iterations. I think he's so brilliant and like the same character but just like a tiny bit different that you know like one is like 17, one is 18. The way he differentiates that is fantastic and it must have been so hard I think to do because he's working like on many characters, but also one. I think he's brilliant in it, and I've always thought he was a good actor. But I think in this film, with like Bong Joon-ho's direction, he really like does shine, and I do hope he gets recognized for it because it's a very hard role, and the film relies on him a lot. He's not just because he's the main character, but he has to also kind of change moods a lot. Like, yes, we have really good comedy, which he does. He has really good comedy timing, but also maybe he's the character that has more of the emotional parts as well. Yeah, I think it's such a good performance. It's amazing. And also, I really liked how, I think this is also kind of maybe typical of Bong Joon-ho's films, but maybe a little bit less. Like the main character is not necessarily like a smart and like, super cool hero. I think we see that a lot in this, like maybe was a Curtis in Snowpiercer, who's like, ready to fight and very clever and he always finds a way. I think in this case it's quite refreshing maybe to see a
Hmm.
character that's a bit like a bit more normal, if you will. He's not like that special. He's special in the sense that he's chosen a very like complicated jobs that even the characters in the film question him for. But he's not like the smartest guy in the room or the coolest guy or the one that knows how to fight. I really like seeing that. Because at first maybe seems like he's sort of like more stupid and he doesn't have like any maybe distinguishing trait that would make him stand out. But I think we learn a lot about him and about like forgiveness and how he has to accept his own background and story. This one really inspired me. I really, really liked it. What about you?
Yeah, I really liked it as well. The only sort of Bong Joon-ho films that I've not seen, I've got one of them on digital. That's The Memories of Murder. I haven't seen the one before it. Forgive me for the name. I know it has cats. Is it cats or dogs in the title? Some say that's probably his weakest, but then again, it is his original
I
film.
haven't seen that one.
I haven't seen the one that was on Netflix. I don't know if it still is on Netflix. The creature, the one, Okja, is that Okja?
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one, but I think my sort of entry into his films was The Host, because for years
Mm.
I've been a massive fan of Asian cinema, and especially Korean cinema. Yeah, I love all the sort of Korean thrillers, like your Old Boy and that. One thing that I think Korea does well is the sort of the crime thrillers, the sort of noir thrillers type. They're very, very good at them. Yep, it's an absurd, crazy film. I was a bit worried, but obviously, how obviously Korea, every country's humour, the type of humour we have is very different, and sometimes some jokes can get lost in translation. It goes back to sometimes if you do understand the language it's been spoken in. Sometimes if they say translate, like for example Italian, and they translate it in English, and say it's a Neapolitan joke, as you know, a lot it's in the way it's said. The Neapolitan way things get said, and the joke can get a bit lost if it's dubbed in English. So sometimes I was a bit worried about Korean. I don't know whether Edward Ashton's American or which country he's actually from, be it the UK or Canada or something like that. The comedy, as you said, yeah, it's satire, it's absurd. Rather than it laughs at it, rather with it. But sometimes it does, it laughs with it as well. You're right where it takes up a lot of current issues, reflecting today's society, where I've wrote down like corrupt politicians, actually Marshall and his wife, the sort of hatred that they build up in the world and their greed, and even going to things like the climate changes and the sort of things, disasters that's happened to everyone, the jobs, you name it. The list is absolutely endless. And there's another one. It sort of goes into the sort of slave trade thing. Obviously the coloniers, they're going to another country, and then there's at one point I think he sees that Mikey gets pronged. The sort of prongs that the coloniers use when they took all the slaves. It was prong like that. It's a sort of little dig at that as well. And there's a really funny bit in it. There's a certain, I'm not going to say much about it, folks, but there's a certain creature that lives on the planet, and there's a funny scene where Marshall wants to wipe. They call them creepers. Marshall wants to wipe them all out. He wants to wipe the alien creeper population out. When he's actually reminded on board by one of his, I think it's his sidekick, says, we're actually aliens here, not the creepers. And we start to learn that the creepers have a sense of intelligence, and sometimes it's better than humanity. There's actually a line he actually says, which is quite, some people might say it reflects a certain president, and that we've mentioned a few before. He goes, when he's talking about Niflheim, the planet, I want a pure white planet full of superior people. So it gives you an
Mm.
idea of his sort of political stance in it, i.e. fascism. the bit where he just wants to get, I think it's like gas or something, he wants to just wipe them all out. And there's at one point where there might be more than one Mikey out there, as you've mentioned. They're trying to help the keepers, and the keepers sort of start helping Mikey and that, and help the colonies in this. And talking about how you go back to where you said to how well Robert Pattinson did, we are trying to each of the Mikeys that we see, how they're slightly different. I'm not spoiling much here, but there is a little backstory. We start to learn about the 3D printing, and it might give you an idea how one of the Mikeys is completely different from Mikey 17. That's all separate. I think you know what bit I'm talking about, Clotilde, when they're talking about how about the 3D printing humans is there. It's an absolutely crazy film, this. I really what I will say is that if I was to judge between Parasite, his last film, and this, Parasite is technically the better film. That is not that's not a downside of Mikey 17. Mikey 17 is a great film, but Parasite personally is the better film. The script, the story's a wee bit messy. This is maybe where the difference between the two stories, the two films that I just mentioned there, this one and the other one, it is a little bit messy, but the humour is full on. The interactions with the cast, you do feel it when you meet the colonists. They actually do feel genuine. They feel convincing. I love how it just resonates with what's happening today, society, be it political or anything humanity or anything to do geographical. It's just crazy. It's not a perfect film. It pays homage to a lot of films. It's made me very curious to go and get Edward Ashton's book to see what anything different. I believe Edward Ashton was involved in the script. I know director Bong did say he did write the script, a screenplay version of it during COVID, and then obviously he met Edward Ashton, I believe, and that's how they sort of worked on it. And maybe that's where a lot of the humour maybe worked in. Edward Ashton's possibly helped him, or any of the other script writers that's on it. I just think it's an absolute brilliant film. It's one of the films that maybe, if you know a bit, if you're quite interested in what's going on in the world today, be it if you support certain things, if you don't support something. There used to be a political puppet program years ago, and I think they brought it back a few years ago, called Spit and Image. And that was just a satire program. It used to be on Sundays and ITV here in the UK. And it just took the rip out of the politicians, the political party. At the time, it was the Conservatives who were in power, so it was Margaret Thatcher that took the sort of rip out of her. This is probably like a human version of it. Mark Ruffalo is absolutely crazy. He's brilliant in it.
He's great.
Yeah, obviously, in American politics, they bring in a lot of religion as in what they believe in. In a way, they're true in certain ways, but what they believe in. And there's one point they start singing a song. I don't know if it's like it's going to be the new national anthem, and it was so funny because it was all a tune and people are all praise the Lord, the hands up, like people would do say in a Baptist church or Specialist church, you name it. And they're all they're giving it wild day and they're going for it, and it's really funny. The way they're doing it, because it's all a tuning and it's so believable, Personally, people should just, if they want to go to religion, they need to find it in their own steps. But this is like organised religion, or people dragging people in, you need to believe in this. That was really funny. And even Toni Collette, she was like the little, when they used to say the little angel on one shoulder and the little devil on the other shoulder. She was like that to Kenneth Marshall and telling him what to do. There's little fun things. There's a guy who walks about, Tim Key, I think it's called. He walks about, they call him Pigeon Man, and you'll see why. He's like other comedy in it, and anyone knows Tim Key played in things like The Taskmaster on Channel 4, and then there's a film that's coming out, I think it's the end of May, or the third week of May. Maybe it's a film we could actually review on here on the podcast. It's called The Ballad of Wallace Island. He is like a millionaire on there, but he's not like a millionaire like Kenneth Marshall. He's won the lottery and he wants something done on the island. I'll not say much more about it. vote if you want to go into the People's Movies. Callum Cooper has actually done a review from the Glasgow Film Festival. It was the surprise film. The Glasgow Film Festival, this is 11th of March. It finished on Sunday the 9th of March. And talking to Callum, as I said, we're recording this on the 11th of March. Callum, what is going to, he's doing a feature on Bong Joon-Ho. I recommend when it gets printed on the website, go and have a look at it. He's done a lot of great work on it, so have a wee look at that on the website. Yep, I really, really loved it. I really, really loved it. So what's your final thoughts, Clotilda, and if you want to give it a rating?
I'm just very happy with it. I think I said that. It's it's so nice when a filmmaker you love is just so consistent. Obviously, like you said, I don't think it's as good as Parasite, but if anything as good as Parasite, like I think that film is stunning.
Yeah,
But the fact that Bong Joon-ho remains so consistent in quality, but also in terms of like his vision, right? What he wants to explore, and also visually and creatively, he's really like an author in every sense of the word. You can recognize his movies, I think, immediately, and it's beautiful. I think when something works out like that, and I also think there's been such a hype around this film that it's just good to see. I mean, for me, it really met expectations. Like the acting is fantastic. I had so much fun. People in the cinema, I watched it like a normal screening. I think it was one of the first screenings they did, like to the public at Picture House, but people were laughing, people were entertained. Like it's really like what I personally love from cinema is like being entertained, but also having all these questions that make you think about like life and the current state of the world. So yes, I give it 4.5 stars just because it can't be as good as Parasite. To me, it's a five, out of five. But yeah, very happy with it.
yeah, I'm the same. I really, really loved it. It's got a lot going for it. You can see it as leave your brain at the box office and just grab your favourite snack and just go with the ride. Yeah, it does have some intelligence in the movie, but it also has that sort of bonkers, absurd type of film. Great performances all around. It resonates what's going on in the world at the moment. It has a laugh with it or at it, considering how you see the views. Yep, it's Parasite. His last film is the better film, but this has a lot going for it. Maybe let down with this sort of messy storyline. Great acting all around for all the actors, and I give it 4 stars. So you have it, folks. That's Mikey 17. That's 4.5 and 4 stars. And for the final review on the Chronicle episode 42 is The Last Showgirl. Clotilda, would you like to tell us all about the film and if you liked it or didn't like it?
Yes. So The Last Showgirl is directed by Coppola, and it's it's a film that focuses on, as the title suggests, the last showgirl, and who's played by Pamela Anderson. Her name in the film is Shelley Gardner, I think. Anyway, she's a relatively older showgirl. She's I believe 7 in her late 50s, and she's been performing at the Brazzle Dazzle for the majority of her career, and she's never left because she got in there as a young silver. And she's been seeing sort of like her co-stars that are much younger now, and they kind of like see her as a mother figure, at least some of them, because she's older and because she's been there for so long. But she's the only one that's older. Nobody else is really her age. One of her friends, who's closer to her in age, has not been working in the sort of show business, and she works as a waitress. So it's the premise is really fascinating. I think in the way we like see a lot of the Razzle Dazzle itself, like this the show in a casino in Las Vegas, and I think the film starts with them getting ready, if I remember correctly. But there's a lot of the sort of show business in it, which I think is very fascinating because we see a lot of times I think actors and show business in movies, but this feels a bit different. I think a bit more real, maybe because she's older and she's struggling with like this pressure from the business, specifically as a showgirl, to remain young and beautiful and all of that. But I just felt like it was very authentic, like the parts where they get ready together in the before the show, and the sort of like the cues that they hear from the stage manager. Like I think that's something that we don't see that much, especially because maybe because it's about theater as well. And I think it sort of like offers this commentary on the sort of industry in general, not just the film industry. It's fascinating to like see it play out really. I think some of it might be quite predictable, in the sense that like it comes with no surprise that at one point the show has to close and the theater is going in another direction to something that is like more profitable to them, and showgirl type of shows are maybe not as popular anymore. But I think it's really interesting to see that. I think it does speak to like the state of the theater today and the state of the arts, and how like this is like people's jobs, and sometimes like things just end up closing or like not making money, and in an industry that is so focused on making money, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking in the film, but it's really, really interesting to see like people's reactions to it, from like the main character compared to like the younger girls, for example, who like just look for another job. But for her, it's obviously a little bit different. Um, she does audition for another show, which I think is like one of maybe the best in the film. When you see her like audition for this other show, that's like quite a lot different to what she was used to. I think it's like I don't know, it's a very sad scene to me, and the whole movie really is like about the pressure that especially women are put through in the entertainment industry, or not just in the entertainment industry. I think the entertainment industry in this movie is kind of used as a way to comment in general, and like how at a certain age women are kind of like expected to like do certain things and be certain. And I found it very profound in that sense. I think Pamela Anderson is absolutely amazing in his role. He's just perfect. Like it does feel like this is like the role of her career. Maybe because of like also what she's personally been through. It's I feel like there could have been no one better to play this character. I was also lucky enough to attend the screening with Pamela Anderson that we did a Q&A afterwards, and it's so beautiful to see how much she cares about this film, and how like she spoke about it, and she said it feels like the beginning of her career all over again. And I thought that was really sweet. And also kind of like to the fact that this is probably one of the first times that she can actually choose her role and do something like so profound. Maybe I think even like a few years ago, a movie like this wouldn't even have gotten made, because I feel like people wouldn't think that these topics are interesting or that people are gonna go watch it. But absolutely beautiful. I really like most of the cast in it. I think was very good. Obviously, Pamela Anderson like is the one that I think stays in your mind and shines the most. But everybody was really good in it. Dave Batista plays like the producer of the theater, and he was so brilliant. I think we're used to seeing him in like a different role. Um, but I found him very good in a film that's maybe like less action, right, or less comedy, which is what he does a lot, is the action films. And it was just nice to see him maybe in a new role, and I think it shows his versatility and how he can also do like more emotional stuff, which is really good. I hope to see him do more of that. But some of the other showgirls are Brenda Song and Kieran, forget her name.
Kieran
It's,
Shipka.
yes, thank you. They're so good. Um, I thought they were like brilliant in it. I haven't seen much of either of them, to be honest. I don't think Brenda Song has done much ever since Still Life of Zack and Cody, but it was so good to see them in this film, because I think they did brilliant, and it's beautiful to see the relationship between Shelly and the other characters, but specifically with the younger showgirls. It's so good to see. And obviously with then she also talks to her daughter. I just love how we can see her relationship with like the other actors or characters even. And how like it changes throughout the film. It's not like one set type of relationship. It's beautiful to see the character grow, but also like the way she interacts with other people and the way she moves through life. I really like that. The only thing I feel like maybe was a tiny bit too long. That's the only thing. I felt like sort of halfway through it was dragging a little bit too much, but I really liked the ending, how they did that. And yeah, I think my favorite like parts and scenes were like the ones in the theater. I found the sort of like reflection on show business very interesting, and the scenes I think where she's like getting ready for the show, and they feel so authentic to me. Maybe it's also because like I've been a theater kid, I've been in plays, like I felt like that spoke a lot to like the experience I've had in like plays and like the getting ready together. That was really cool to see. I feel like it's not something that many people like might be aware of. What are your thoughts on the film?
Yeah, Brenda's song, I didn't realise her partner is Macaulay Culkin.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Obviously, I remember Brenda's song. Did she play Andrew Garfield's love interest in the Facebook film?
Maybe. I forgot about that.
I think she did. And she was a bit crazy in that. Kieran Shipka, she's more of a Netflix at the moment because she's Sabrina. No, she played in the Chill Adventures of Sabrina, no Sabrina the Witch. The last film before that she did was the red one with Dwayne Johnson, and she was actually in Twisters. She was yeah, which folks, I did take 2 on Twisters. You'll find it on the website or go over to Podbean. All say she doesn't last long in it. After the film, I had to look to see if it was her, and it was her. I like what you were saying about Dave Batista. People probably know him a lot for his wrestling because he was a WWE wrestler for years. And obviously, a lot of WWE wrestlers move over and become actors. Obviously, the most famous one is Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. A lot of saying, he's the best, he's the greatest of them all. Then you've got John Cena, who's just, if you're into wrestling, he's became a bad guy. He was always the face, and he's became a bad guy. He's about to retire. But John Cena's very good. He's very good at comedic roles. But I think out of them all, Dave Batista is the best of the bunch because he's shown a better range of type of films that he can do. Like The Rock, you always think of action movies. John Cena, I always think of comedy movies. Comedy movies where there might be a wee bit of action in it. But obviously he did that character from the Suicide Squad, the Peacemaker, I think it was called. That's one of the characters. He's very good at that type of character. But Dave Batista, I think he's even better. People also know him from the Blade Runner, is it 2049? He was in that. No, you're right. He's very, very good. He's got a better range. But see if you see him now and then look back at one of his wrestling pictures, he's lost a lot of weight. I mean, I know he's a guy in his mid-50s now, but he's lost a lot of weight. And unbelievable. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze here. I enjoyed the movie. Some of the big movies made by Coppola, there's always that sort of dream-like feel to the film, you know.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of them. I think Gia Coppola's worked a lot in Wes Anderson movies. She's sort of always one of the producers. So there's a lot of Wes Anderson. So. Yeah, there's also that sort of cinematography is beautiful in this. Very indie though at the same time. I know that sounds weird to say, no, it's very indie. It doesn't go for the sort of your sort of mainstream type cinematography. There's a lot of blurry out where it focuses on the actual character who may be speaking or who it might be about. I'm about to become Big 5-0 in about 3-4 months' time, and I'm of an age I can remember Pamela Anderson, who used to be a stable part of British television, ITV with Baywatch. There's only one way of saying it. They treated her and portrayed her as a bimbo. And that's me being polite about it. That's how they treated her. She was a pin-up girl back in the days. I think she did things like Playboy, and all these adult magazines. And young boys and adults my age group or a bit older, as soon as they'd done them, they were going around all the places where you could buy the magazines to actually find it. But they forget I really liked how they picked her for this movie to show it. Yeah, she can act a bit. It reminds me of Mickey Rourke in The Wrestler, and I think that was the first comparison of the two of them. People saying this is a wrestler, but from a female perspective, I can sort of agree with certain stents of a person in a certain age where with Mickey Rourke does he continue wrestling where he can kill himself? And his relationship with I think it was his daughter also, was very, very, very strained. Where obviously it's something he's done in his life. What does he do next? Because when you see him at that, he's gone to these conventions where old wrestlers just sit there, sign pictures, get $30 or something for it, sell a few t-shirts, meet some old faces, maybe do the odd wrestling match here and there, you know. That's all he knows. Obviously, with Pamela Anderson's character Shelly, all she knows is the razzle and dazzle. And obviously, she said herself, point through the film, where she's actually had chances get out of that, the dancing, but she loved it that much, that's all she knew. And obviously, it's like any career, where you do some so long, and B, that company closes after you've been at the company for 20 years. But that's all you've known since you've left school. And you can see with Shirley, and obviously Billie Lourd plays her daughter Hannah. You don't know much about the story, but sometimes you get films where they tell you the whole story at the beginning, and then at the end you get to see the fallback, what happened because of that, the relationship. What I liked about this film was they only gave you in dribs and drabs of how the relationship strained. And I liked how at the beginning, when she meets her mum, she doesn't call her mum; she calls her Shelly. A bit like where Bart Simpson just calls his dad Homer all the time, but that's in a completely different context. But the same way, it's that sort of sense, because she's just like, right, what do you want? Where do you want to come? And then she's not coming to see the show, blah blah blah. This, and obviously she comes to see the show, and obviously bad memories come back for her. And what I also liked about Pamela Anderson's character was she was a bit of a mum figure to the younger girls. Brenda Song, Kieran, Shipka, as you say. They help her with the big head dress that she has to wear, and the sort of clothes she has to wear, And they're also the sign of, obviously, when they're trying to move on, they're thinking to get into other sort of type of dancing. And they give Shelley a glimpse of what it is now, if she was doing it now. And obviously it's more adult, if you like to say. And they get Shelley says it in there, they take off their top and they show their breasts, basically. But in the sort of dancing that the two younger girls I want to go for, they show a bit more, and they're a bit more graphic, one way of putting it. And Shelley was just disgusted about it. And her friend, who's played by Jamie Lee Curtis, forgive me, I forget her character's name. It might be Barbara, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was one of the dancers as well. She's the sort of she's like the aunt, you like to say, to the younger girls, where she likes her drink. She doesn't mind the men fondling her. She's like a bunny girl, not a bar, and she doesn't mind the guys coming up and groping her, which is obviously disgusting, doing that type of things, It's all part of the game, She still feels that she is one of the dancers. And she good to show the sort of different elements, how it goes. And it was good to show how the actual decline in the industry, and it shows you how much Las Vegas changes. Where, as you know, sometimes there might be a hotel that's up, and then something happens 10 years later, it's pulled in, someone else is built up. It reminds me of Japan and Tokyo. That's what they do quite a lot. And it's a new business as well, and the show must go on. And I liked how you said there's a bit she's gone for an audition, and how everything's changed. And I didn't realise that the person who's doing the auditions was Jason Schwartzman. I didn't realise that was him until I looked back when I was doing the research, and how he speaks to her, and how Shelley gets a bit nervous and she lies about her age. I'm not spoiling any of it, folks, because it's that a lot of part of that's in the trailer. It's just a beautiful film. However, did it deserve to get to an Oscar or awards? I'm not going to say much. What do you think, Clotilde? Do you think it deserves the awards? I don't think it won it. It never won any of the major ones. It might have won some of the small ones. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, there were a few strong films, I think, this year. So it's hard to say. No, I mean, I feel like out of the films that I think were maybe snubbed more and were not like nominated in countries that I think they should have been nominated in, The Last Showgirl wasn't one that came to mind. I think there were other sort of like misses, like notable ones,
Yeah.
but that wasn't sort of like the one that I thought of. The one thing I would say is Jamie Lee Curtis got nominated, didn't she?
Yeah.
And I think that's a bit like I disagree with that because I think if anybody should be nominated for this film, it wouldn't be Jamie Lee Curtis. Do you know what I mean? Like I think I'm not saying she's a bad actor,
No.
but I think in this film there were a lot, almost anyone else was stronger than her.
Yeah.
Like if anyone, then I think Pamela Anderson should have been nominated, even if like the Best Actress race was I think very very hard this year.
Yeah.
But even in terms of like supporting, I think somebody like Brenda Song to me had more of an impact, like her character. So I'm not quite sure about that. I don't necessarily think she's the best like supporting actress in that film at all. So I don't really see why she would be nominated. compared to like the rest of the cast. But yeah, I have to say I don't think it was like one of the worst like misses of this Oscar or just a worst season. Personally, it's a good film. Like that doesn't mean it's a bad film. It's just I didn't really think of it in terms of Oscar season, maybe.
Yeah. I'm a bit. No, did it deserve the awards? No, I don't think it. Maybe some of the smaller independents. I thought, yeah, it could be in the running.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're totally correct about Jamie Lee Curtis. She was good in it, but other actresses and actors were in it a bit longer than her, and had a bit more impact in the film. I liked the sort of context it's shown. When I mentioned earlier The Wrestler, I think this film is more in line with, I know it sounds silly, the substance, as in the story it's doing, as in an older person. That person's doing this for so long, and then we need a younger model. You're out the door, type of thing. How the older person gets treated. And obviously, it's more of a female perspective because with Dave Batista's character, he's going to his character would walk into, I think it's Dave, would walk in, because he's a producer, he could easily walk into another producer job. And I wonder if Shelly was a producer, would she walk into that job? Is it just the type of climate and the type of job, the industry that they're working in, and it's a very male dominated, and obviously when they're dancing, where the women are the priority, when that goes, they go type thing, So I think it's more at home with the substance rather than the wrestler. I know the substance is a body horror type thing, but the message that they're doing, they do connect. It is a solid film, but it has many flaws in it. Yet, as you said earlier on, it's very predictable. The ending is a bit predictable. Is it an enjoyable film? Yeah, I think it was. I watched it 2 weeks after it came out because a lot of people were saying to me, "Oh, this film will be gone after a week." Every Tuesday, there's certain cinema I go to, the Wilder Cine. That's when they print off their new, for the following weeks, what films are going to be out, their times. The Last Showgirl is lasting longer than some of the other films that's coming out, so it is doing the business in it. Maybe no films like Anora or The Monkey or any of the big films, or Mikey 17, which we just reviewed, type of thing. So before I give my rating, what about yourself, Clotilde? What's your final thoughts and the rating you like to give it?
I was a bit unsure because, like I said, I do think the pace maybe could have been a bit tighter at times.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I really like the direction it was going in, and I think the cinematography is like beautiful. I was obviously lucky enough to see it in the cinemas, and I think like that's the best way to experience. I mean, it's the best way to experience anything, but specifically with this one, you really get to appreciate like the cinematography, I think, very well. So yeah, in the end, I decided to give it 4 stars because quite like you did, like you said, we did see some of the same themes with like the substance. I still think it's like very important to talk about these things, and it's not often that movies center on them.
Yep, yeah, I'm a bit lower than you, but I'm only giving it 3 stars. I don't know. Do you think because you had the Q&A with Pamela Anderson, maybe with Pamela actually there and describing a bit of film and the reasons and that, do you think that's maybe giving you a bit of insight of what was on the screen? Obviously, I wasn't there. I was just at a normal Sunday afternoon screening.
Oh yeah, I think so. I think like you could see how much she cares about this film as well. And she talked a lot about like the filming process and like what was it like on set, which I think always when you hear it from the people involved, it always adds like an extra layer to the film. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of the things she said, you get to appreciate the film more. Like they only had, I don't remember how many days, but it was quite a quick shoot. And I think that all that adds up, right? It does sort of like make you see the film in a different way, I think. And also, like I saw it in screen one at Picture House, so it's a really, it's a big screen. I think that also plays a part in it. You really get to see a lot of the details, and especially in the cinematography and directing.
So as I said, I'm giving it 3 stars. It's a solid film. It's only I think it's only 85, 86 minutes long, so it's not a long film. There's enough there if it's maybe you're going to see Mikey 17 and then you go, right, I've got a couple hours before I need to go home, and that's on next. That'll fill the gap. Yeah, there's a lot to it. There's a lot going for it. but it's not going to be a film that's going to be in everyone's mind for the awards. It's a solid film, good acting. It's probably Pamela Anderson's best film, because of the films that she used to do were like barbed wire, and she was like a bimbo in all these films. But it's good to actually see her doing something intelligent, something more shows off her dramatic chops. Oh, the acting was very good in it. So you have it, folks. That's 4-star and 3-star for The Last Showgirl. There you have it, folks. That's a wrap on episode 42 of The Chronicle. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much to Picture House Cinemas and Warner Bros. For letting us see both the films, The Last Showgirl and Mikey 17. Both are now out in UK cinemas and cinemas around the world. And Clotilde, thank you very much for joining us. Would you like to tell the listeners where they can find you on social media and maybe where they can read some of your reviews?
So, of course, I write for the Divas movies. I also write for I Don't Care Reviews, Movie Marker, Film Hounds, and a couple more. I'm on Instagram at The Perks of Being Chloe, and I'm on Letterboxd and Twitter at Films with Chloe. And I'm trying to use Twitter more, so there's that.
Great, thank you very much. As in the Chronicle and People's Movies, we do sort of share the same social media. So we're on Facebook at The People's Movies, on X Twitter at The People's Movie, Blue Sky at The People's Movies, Instagram at The People's Movies, and we're also on YouTube at The People's Movies 1. And obviously, you can find the episodes of The Chronicle on some of the popular podcast websites to download your favourite podcasts, such as Podcast Addict, Spotify, YouTube, Castbox, and Podbean. Podbean is our main place for the podcast. If you don't get it, listen to it on The People's Movies. There are several other places you can listen to the podcast. If you're on Podbean, at the top, there's all the links up there. Sometimes we might continue the chat over at the Chronicle Take 2. So stay tuned on that social media or over at The People's Movies for future episodes, and also future episodes of The Chronicle. You can also sign up for our email newsletter. The links are over at the website. The People's Movies and The Chronicle is a small website, small podcast, and one way you can show your support is with Buy Me a Coffee. The link is over at the website. Other ways you can do that is obviously share this podcast and other episodes and previous episodes on social media with your friends and family. And if you're listening on one of the popular podcast websites, please do share it, rate us. It does help the algorithm so people can find out where we are. Thank you very much, Clotilde, for joining us. Until the next time, enjoy the movies.